Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself to be the best, die with no regrets. Live with every breath, see my message start to spread. And I had so many dreams, then you hit your teens. Life ain't really what it seems, try to find out what it means. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a past, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win. I don't want no fake love, I want the real stuff. Everybody listen up, cause I'll only say it once. I'm gonna show you all the path, if you want it bad. I'm gonna show you where it's at, yeah, how you can get it back. Yeah, cause I ain't never done, I'll be number one. Working hella hard until I get just what I want, yeah. Rises like the sun, yeah, fatal like a gun. Shooter's gonna shoot and I'm gonna shoot until I won, yeah. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a past, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win, yeah. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself on track. Keep my head up, staying strong, always moving on. Feel I don't belong, tell my thoughts to move along. Push myself to be the best, die with no regrets. Live with every breath, see my message start to spread. And I had so many dreams, then you hit your teens. Life ain't really what it seems, try to find out what it means. Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine. Yeah, everything I do, I'm just being genuine. Yeah, I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah, able, oh yeah, I'm stable, oh yeah, no label, oh yeah, you know me, I have only a past, I'm lonely, but damn, I'm going to win. I don't want no fake love, I want the real stuff. Everybody listen up, cause I'll only say it once. I'm gonna show you all the path, if you want it bad. I'm gonna show you where it's at, yeah, how you can get it back. Yeah, cause I ain't never done, I'll be number.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome. Happy Saturday afternoon. So I was going to go live later, but there wasn't a whole lot with respect to Majorjon Kaylor. So I was able to put together my presentation a little bit quicker. I know, right? Grammy Nini, what do you mean a comment was deleted? I don't think any comments were deleted. I wasn't aware, so I will definitely look into it, but normally comments aren't deleted. So that's a little bit curious to me. So what we have is, so this case I had mentioned earlier this morning, and actually in my live when we were, Bash and I were talking with Betty, having a discussion about her information, I had looked into this case when I heard her mention it. And so, hey, Sinner, there are, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm still hung up on that a comment was deleted. So I have a few news articles, and then we are going to watch his first court appearance. It's about 17 minutes long. I'll probably speed it up a little bit just to save time. I am going to go over the probable cause affidavit as well. And then there's just, I'm going to talk about the family that lost their life a little bit. And then we'll talk about the state not seeking the death penalty in this case. So it shouldn't be a very long live, which is nice because I need to actually stop procrastinating and do something. So really quickly, I was going to say good morning. Good afternoon, I should say. Cool Gamer, always a pleasure. Bash, Outlaw. Dutch Oma, hello. Patricia, hi. Grammy, Nini, again, hello. Angel. Oh, you posted a comment saying thanks? So possibly what happened, Grammy, and I don't know, I'm not YouTube savvy, I'm learning. Possibly if you had commented after I left the live, it could have cut off your comment because the live stream was over. That is all I can think that would have happened. I will look though, because when I checked earlier, my live chat hadn't been posted yet. So yeah, I didn't see anything either. Like, it was a pretty funny live. They turn on subs only. It will wipe comments clean. Oh. I can still, but that's weird because I can still see the comments before I put that on. So that's weird. Hello, True Crime. Mona Lisa, hi. Oh, on replay comments. No, I feel like I saw that comment, Grammy. I'll have to look, but I'm pretty sure I saw that comment. So if it's not there, it has to be because I have no idea. But I will look. Hey, Jean. Yes, this case is pretty intense, to say the least. Ooh, camping. Is it Lake Mashanagi? No, you're fine, Grammy. Listen, distractions welcome. Yes. All right. So, welcome everyone for being here. So, this case is this Idaho father, Majorjon Kaylor, according to him, snapped and went to his neighbor's house. Well, it's not really a neighbor, his downstairs neighbor, and killed the entire family. And I need to correct something I had said earlier. I had thought that the wife and children were inside the home and the 18-year-old son of the other family was outside. However, it seems the article wasn't written very good. The Kaylor family lived on top on the second story. The Smith family lived on the first story. So the children and the wife were outside playing, and that's when the 18-year-old from the other family supposedly, allegedly, was doing inappropriate things in the window. So I wanted to correct that right off because the article had me confused and I wanted to check that. But we will be going through the PCA. We'll be watching his first appearance. And then I have a couple of videos talking about the victims. Okay, so the first article, and again, this happened, as I had said, on June 18th, which was Father's Day. And so a lot of the articles, the initial articles that came out, have been updated. So again, I have these in chronological order as best I can in a format that makes sense to me. So this was from June 20th, which would have been Tuesday, this past Tuesday. And details emerge in Kellogg shooting deaths. Excuse me. So this is the home, and they're calling this a duplex, and it possibly could be regional. When I think of a duplex to me is side by side, not up and down. So this would be, to me, a 2-family home, not a duplex. But they're saying this is a duplex. So the Kaylor family lived on the top floor. The Smith family lived on the bottom. Oops. Hold on. Technical difficulties here. I almost closed YouTube on my phone. Oh, Grammy. So this is why. Okay, now I understand. So I have a setting with chat and comments. Well, actually, it's more so for comments, that any comments that may be inappropriate, I guess. And some of the comments that they think are inappropriate are not even close to being inappropriate. I probably haven't gone in yet to approve them. So your comment is there. It's just not there because I haven't okayed it, so to speak. Hey, unseen thinkers, sorry. Okay, so, excuse me. So 4 people are dead and a Kellogg man is in custody following a shooting on Father's Day. And again, this is in Shoshone, Idaho. And I looked up the pronunciation because there is Indian tribe, Native American tribe, Shoshone, and the city or the town in Idaho is Shoshone. So I wanted to make sure that I had pronunciation correct. So it is Shoshone. So just before 7:30 p.m. Sunday, law enforcement responded to a call reporting gunshots were heard coming from a multi-dwelling residence at the corner of Utah and Brown Streets behind Mountain View Congregational Church. Oh, you guys can't see this because of the way I have it set up. I thought you would be able to see it bigger. Hang on a second. You know what? I'm just going to get rid of myself. There we go. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. What I'll do. Whoops. Let me just make sure that looks right. There we go. Perfect. Okay, the suspect, a 31-year-old, was at the scene when police and sheriff's office personnel arrived and was taken into custody. So again, the suspect's name has been released as of today. And his name is Majorjon Kaylor. And they have it as Major John Kaylor, but his entire name is Majorjon. Like, it's all one word. He was booked into Shoshone County Jail on probable cause of murder. Quote, "This is a tragic situation that will affect the Kellogg community. Detectives continue working to establish a timeline in what led to the shooting. As this case will go through the judicial process, we are ensuring every angle is covered with a thorough investigation." End quote. And I did look up the population of Shoshone, I'm sorry, Kellogg, I should say, was, I don't want to misspeak. In 2021, the population was around 2,400. So a pretty small community. According to Idaho State Police, the 4 victims were Kaylor's neighbors. Their names have not been released. However, as of today, they have been. The Shoshone County Coroner's Office took custody of the 4 deceased and will release victim identities along with the cause and manner of their deaths. Reports, family members, neighbors, and coworkers indicate the victims were members of the same family, and among them was 18-year-old Devin Smith. According to police records, Smith was recently charged with misdemeanor indecent exposure after it was alleged that he was standing in his bedroom window, naked and pleasuring himself, while looking into the backyard where Kaylor's daughters were playing. Kaylor's wife reportedly saw Smith in the window and filed a report with Kellogg Police Department, who cited Smith. The other victims, according to family members, neighbors, and coworkers, were Smith's mother, Kenna Guardipee, his grandfather, and younger brother. Guardipee worked just a few hundred feet away from the crime scene at Mountain Valley of Cascadia as a cook. Mountain Valley of Cascadia and all of our staff are deeply saddened by the loss of one of our team members and tragic effects to our community. We will greatly miss her caring presence in our facility. We are thankful for the outpouring of concern for us and remain committed to serving this community, our residents, and staff. Kaylor served at the Shoshone Public Safety Building. Detectives are confident all parties involved have been identified and do not believe there is an ongoing danger to the community. Idaho State Police worked collaboratively with the Shoshone Sheriff's Office, Kellogg Police Department, and the Shoshone County Prosecuting Attorney's Office throughout the night to investigate and obtain search warrants for the case. Yeah, Majorjon. It is a very interesting. Okay, so next we are going to go through the probable cause affidavit, and it's not very long. I do warn that some details could be sensitive to some of us because it is graphic in nature. So viewer discretion is advised. And I did find out the reason that these documents were dumped yesterday, I think it was yesterday, is because they were not releasing any of this information until after Majorjon had his first appearance. So that's why all of the documents have been released. So again, Majorjon Kaylor. So there we go. So I, Detective Justin Klitsch, being first duly sworn, state that I am the same person whose name is ascribed to the attached criminal citation felony, and that my answers to the questions asked by the court with reference to said arrest are as follows. On June 18th, 2023, at approximately 19:20 hours, a 911 call came into Shoshone County Dispatch alleging shots fired in the area of 515 Brown Avenue, Kellogg, Shoshone County, Idaho. Shortly thereafter, a second call was received by dispatch that an individual had executed his neighbors. Sergeant Jared Lasky of the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene at 19:24 hours and observed two individuals later identified as Majorjon Kaylor. And then there was another person they've redacted in the street at the location of 515 Brown Avenue in Kellogg, Idaho. Kaylor told Sergeant Belaski that he had shot/killed his neighbors. Hey, blank screen. Yes, exactly, blank screen. Well, she covered it, just not very well. But yes. I agree, Grammy. I agree. At approximately 19:57 hours, Idaho State Police Detective Justin Klitsch, was requested to respond to the 515 Brown Avenue Kellogg location. I would arrive at the scene of the homicide at approximately 21:35 hours and assume investigatory duties at that location. During my communications en route to the scene and after initial investigative activities once on location, I would come to learn the following. The four deceased victims were Kenneth R. Guardipee, Kenna L. Guardipee, Devin R. Smith, and A.S., which they have redacted the minor's name in the PCA. However, many news outlets are naming the minor child, so I'm not sure why that is, but for this, I will be referring to them as AS. The suspect, Majorjon Kaylor, detained prior to my arrival. A few days prior to the incident, the suspect's wife, Kaylee M. Kaylor, had made a post on Facebook describing a recent incident between her daughters, and Devin Smith. In her post, Kaylee Kaylor indicated Devin Smith had exposed himself, was shaking his and pleasuring himself through a window in front of her and her juvenile daughters. The address of 515 West Brown Avenue, Kellogg, is a 2-story residential apartment building with 2 apartments designated as Apartment A and Apartment B. The apartment could be described as a tan or light yellowish color with a brownish color trim. Apartment A is a ground level apartment known to be occupied by the 4 listed victims. Apartment B is a 2nd-story apartment known to be occupied by Kaylor, his wife, and their 3 children. The apartment building has 2 garages attached, which are accessed by exterior doors. It is suspected that one garage belongs to Apartment A and the other Apartment B. The apartment building has a 2-vehicle driveway directly in front of the attached garages. In the driveway is black 2022 Dodge Ram, registered to Kaylee and Majorjon Kaylor, and a green 2001 Subaru Forester, registered to Kenna Guardipee. There is a area along the side of the apartment building where a white 2002 Subaru Forester, registered to Kenneth, was parked. And I found it interesting when reading this that they had such a description of the location of the house, what the house looked like, how it was structured, and in comparison with the PCA for the Moscow murders, they didn't really say that. They just started with, upon arriving, entering, this is what we saw. Okay, yeah. So the 16-year-old was a brother. The 18-year-old is who was charged with a misdemeanor for what he was doing. So, yes, because she didn't read the story, probably. Devin Smith and AS victims were found deceased inside apartment A, and Guardipee and Kenneth Guardipee were found deceased outside near the rear entrance / door stairway to apartment A. So if we go back to why did this make this little? There we go. So if we look back at this picture, here is the staircase. So entrance, doorway, stairway. So the mother and grandfather are, I'm assuming, found in the area, like in front here. That's what I would assume based on the description. Kenna Guardipee was lying face up next to the rear exterior concrete steps to apartment A with an apparent gunshot wound to her right temple, which appeared to have been fired within close proximity. Kenneth Guardipee was found partially on the concrete steps and partially on a garden area next to the steps. He also had an apparent gunshot wound to the right temple area, which appeared to have been fired in close proximity based on the entry wound. There were multiple .45 caliber casings in the immediate vicinity of both Kenneth Guardipee and Kenneth Guardipee. So that does make sense that here you can see the concrete steps and like little flowers. So I'm going to assume that the mom and grandfather either came to the door or were already outside when this happened. On the interior of apartment A, AS is the 16-year-old. AS was found lying face down on his stomach in the kitchen and the living room with a gunshot wound to the right temple area that appeared to be fired in close proximity based on the entry wound. There was one .45 caliber firearm casing found near AS' body. Hey, Dee, how are you? Oh, of course he will, Bash. Like, so it's awful. And speaking of that, so one thing I noticed with the Moscow incident on 1122 King Road, if you go to Google Maps or Google Earth, you can no longer go up King Road. That's just a side note. I was there trying to see something with the apartment building next door, and when I went there, you can't maneuver up King Road anymore on Google Maps. So I found that interesting. Yeah, so True Crime Dime, you might have come in a little late. I correct myself because the article I had initially read was confusing. So the Kaylor family lived on the top floor, the Smith family on the bottom. And when the mom and her two young daughters were outside playing, that is when it is alleged that the 18-year-old was indecently exposing himself and doing inappropriate things in front of them. Yes. Okay, 118 miles. Yep. Devin Smith was found in the southeastern bedroom of apartment A behind the bedroom door on his knees, face down, also with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. There were multiple .45 caliber firearm casings found in the bedroom where Devin Smith was located. So we have the grandfather was found with an apparent gunshot wound to the right temple. The mom, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The mom had an apparent gunshot wound to her right temple. The grandfather had an apparent gunshot wound to the right temple as well. The 16-year-old had a gunshot wound to the right temple. And the 18-year-old, who is alleged to have done these indecent acts, was shot multiple times in the head. Once on scene, I conducted a brief interview with Kaylor. I read Kaylor his Miranda rights. During the course of our interview, Kaylor stated he was suspicious and concerned for his children, as one of the victims, Devin Smith, had been acting suspicious, watching his kids, and conducted acts of nudity in front of his children. Kaylor referred to Devin Smith as a pedo. Kaylor had confronted Devin Smith's mother, Kenna, and his grandfather, Kenneth, and was upset that they didn't seem to take his concerns with Devin seriously. Kaylor said he, quote, snapped, lost it, and did something about it. Kaylor then indicated he wanted an attorney, and the interview was concluded. It was the mom and grandpa. So the mom, so it was the grandpa, the mom, and the two boys. I then interviewed Kaylee Kaylor. Kaylee is Majorjon's wife. In summary, Kaylee Kaylor indicated the four victims had recently moved into the apartment, and she had observed Devin Smith fully nude, pleasuring himself in front of her and her juvenile daughter through a window on the previous Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. The police had responded and investigated the incident. On June 18th, 2023, at approximately 1800 hours, an argument occurred between Kaylee Kaylor. Okay, so Kaylor is Majorjon. So Kaylee, Majorjon, and Kenna, which was later confirmed by video surveillance obtained from an adjacent business building, which captured pertinent portions of this incident. Kaylee Kaylor indicated Kaylor had a holster gun on his person, which he put on after arriving home from work before going outside with the family to water plants in the backyard area that is shared by both apartments. Kaylee indicated she'd had possession of the handgun, which she described as black and heavy, prior to Majorjon getting home from work. She indicated Majorjon herself were sitting in the backyard outside near the back door of apartment A, arguing with Kenna Guardipee about the inappropriate behavior of her son, Devin, and their lack of taking the situation seriously. She appeared concerned that there would be no consequences for Devin's actions, either by law enforcement or Devin's family. Kaylee indicated she was standing near Majorjon and heard gunshots, observed Kenna Guardipee fall to the ground, and then saw Kenneth Guardipee fall to the ground. Kaylee then ran upstairs to her apartment and heard additional gunshots. She did not remember seeing Majorjon holding the gun. Kaylee indicated both Kenneth Guardipee and Kenna Guardipee were unarmed. Kaylee further noted that Majorjon said he did what he had to had to do and to tell their kids he protected them. So possibly girlfriend read the PCA, just didn't mention the fact that she did. Kaylee, after the shooting, Majorjon handed her his phone, keys, and wallet and asked her to hold onto them. She said she placed both her and Kaylor's phones down inside their apartment. Kaylee observed Majorjon put a belt, holster, and gun in her black Dodge truck parked outside. She said she overheard Majorjon talking on the phone, saying he had killed 4 people. I asked Kaylee if her and Majorjon had talked to each other about what they were going to do if an incident were to happen again, and she indicated Majorjon had already told the police that if something like this, referring to the indecent exposure, that he, Majorjon, was going to take care of it, which she indicated she interpreted as more likely beating someone up. Kaylee said she and Majorjon had shared an iconic picture of the guy on the telephone who shoots the molester who raped his daughter. I would later come to learn that Kaylee was referring to Gady Plosh, who on camera/television shot and killed the man who was suspected of kidnapping, R-ing, and molesting his daughter. It was later discovered Kaylee had shared a black and white meme type image which had the words, quote, "How to catch a predator," end quote, and a drawing of a man at a telephone booth shooting another in the head. On scene, I observed a belt, holster, and semi-automatic pistol in the front driver's seat of the black Dodge, which could be seen through the window of the Dodge. I later reviewed the above surveillance video from a nearby business that corroborated that an altercation or argument had taken place at the location, which can be heard in the audio portion of the video. The audio also reveals what sounds like multiple gunshots being fired. Prior to the shooting, the audio portion of the video reveals over 5 minutes of what sounded like a loud argument/confrontation between Majorjon, Kaylee, and someone else who, based on Kaylee's statement, I suspect to be Guardipee. From the statement of events relayed from Kaylee, corroborated by circumstantial evidence and Majorjon's own comments, it would appear that after making 2 similarly placed shots in the right temple area of both Kenna and Kenneth Guardipee, Majorjon entered the residence of apartment A, where he shot and killed both A.S. and Devin Smith. Based on the evidence collected at the scene and the locations of the victims' bodies, it further appeared A was shot point blank or near point blank range while lying on the floor in a prone position. All of the victims appear to only have been shot once, with the exception of Devin Smith, who had been shot multiple times from close range. The audio from the video surveillance appears to show multiple seconds pass between the time Kenneth Guardipee and Kenna Guardipee were likely killed when A.S. was likely killed, and also between the time A.S. was likely killed and Devin Smith was likely killed. As a part of the execution of a search warrant, I conducted a search of the 2022 Dodge Ram and removed a .45 caliber high-point semi-automatic pistol, which was holstered and secured with a snap and attached to a belt. Upon examination of this firearm, it was discovered that the pistol had 1 bullet in the chamber and 5 bullets in the magazine. There were what appeared to be both blood on the pistol, consistent with close-range shots or shots. I also located an empty magazine under the seat of the truck. Based upon the evidence collected, specifically the magazines, the magazine capacities, and empty shell casings found at the crime scene, Majorjon would have likely had to deliberately change magazines and or reload magazines in order to continue shooting and discharge the number of rounds which were identified to have been fired during the homicide. Oh, you're welcome, Patricia. Angel, what do you mean? Pretty sure it was a son, though, not a daughter. This investigation is ongoing, but at the time there appears to be sufficient evidence to support criminal charges for murder in the first degree for each of the 4 victims and burglary. On June 19th, 2023, Majorjon was booked in the Shoshone County Jail for 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of burglary. And then you have the signature. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is watch the... One second. Oh, I don't think I can speed this up. Okay, so this is the first appearance. So we're going to just listen to this where they go through his charges, and I'm actually going to fast forward until the judge. There we go.
Your rights in a criminal case. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to represent you at public expense. How would you like to proceed with respect to your attorney appointment? You have submitted an application for court-appointed counsel, sir.
I'd like to get a public defender.
Based upon a review of your application for court-appointed counsel, I did determine that you do qualify based upon your income status. I will appoint an attorney to represent you. For purposes of the first appearance here today, Ms. Cheesebro is a qualified individual who is listed on the Public Defense Commission roster as well as a qualified felony counsel. She is appointed for purposes of your first appearance today and may or may not remain your counsel depending upon the need to appoint capital qualified counsel within the next 14 days. You are presumed innocent until proven guilty, sir. What that means is you have the right to a jury trial. At that trial, the state bears the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt as to every element of the offense charged. You have the right to a preliminary hearing. At that preliminary hearing, the state bears the burden of proof to show by sufficient evidence that more probably than not a felony crime has been committed, and more probably than not you committed that offense. If the court finds probable cause after a preliminary hearing, it will sign an order binding you over to the district court. Once you are bound over to the district court, at that point in time, you will have an arraignment at which you can enter a not guilty plea. At any jury trial or hearing, you have the right to testify or not testify. If you choose not to testify, that fact cannot be used against you at trial. You have the right to confront and cross-examine any witnesses that are called to testify against you, and you have the right to call your own witnesses and the right to compel witnesses to testify by way of a subpoena at no cost to you. If you are convicted or plead guilty, you have the right to appeal that conviction and sentence. Do you understand these rights, sir?
Yes.
The next issue I will go over with you is the criminal complaint. Ms. Cheesebro, did you receive a copy of the criminal complaint?
We did.
Did you have an opportunity to go over that with Mr. Kaylor?
We have.
Mr. Kaylor, count 1 charges you with a violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4002, 18-4003, murder in the first degree of felony. That offense alleges that on or about the 18th day of June, 2023 in Shoshone County, state of Idaho, that you did willfully, deliberately, and with malice aforethought unlawfully kill the person of Kenna L. Guardipee, a human being, to wit, by shooting her, which resulted in death and which was premeditated and or to execute vengeance. That carries a potential maximum penalty of death and or life imprisonment. Do you understand that charge and the potential maximum penalties, sir?
Yes. So I go by Emmy Headstone online. That's not my real name, although it would be a pretty cool name to have if my name was Emmy Headstone, but that is not my name. Yes, definitely an alias.
Yes.
Count 2 also charges you with murder in the first degree, a felony, violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4002, 18-003, murder in the first degree. It alleges that on or about the 18th day of June, 2023, in Shoshone County, state of Idaho, that you did willfully, deliberately, and with malice aforethought, unlawfully kill the person of Kenneth R. Guardipee, a human being, to wit, by shooting him, which resulted in his death, and which was premeditated and/or to execute vengeance. That offense carries a potential death and/or life imprisonment. Do you understand the charge and the potential maximum penalties for that count?
Yes.
Count 3 charges you with a violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4002, and 18-4003 A and D, murder in the first degree, a felony. It alleges that you committed that offense on the 18th day of June, 2023, in the county of Shoshone, state of Idaho, by willfully, deliberately, and with malice aforethought, unlawfully killing the person of A.S., a human being, to wit, by shooting him, which resulted in his death, and which was premeditated to execute vengeance and/or committed in the perpetration of burglary. That carries a potential maximum.
So that's interesting too. So I'm curious whether or not he would have been charged with the burglary if he hadn't entered the residence. So that's interesting as well, because in the Idaho 4 case, Koberger is only being charged with 1 count of burglary. This guy is being charged with 2 counts of burglary, which is interesting to me how it's different.
Maximum sentence of death and/or life imprisonment. Do you understand that offense and the potential maximum penalties?
Yes.
Count 4 charges you with a violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4002, and 18-4003 A and D, murder in the first degree, a felony. It alleges that you committed that offense on the 18th day of June, 2023, in the county of Shoshone, state of Idaho.
Right. So would the burglary charge, so the 2 burglary charges would be one for outside, one for inside? That's what I'm confused about, because I understand being charged with burglary, but Majorjon is being charged with 2 counts of burglary, and that's what I was curious about.
Willfully, deliberately, and with malice aforethought, unlawfully killing the person of Devin R. Smith, a human being, to wit, by shooting him, which resulted in his death, and which was premeditated to execute vengeance and/or committed in the perpetration of burglary. That carries a potential maximum penalty of death and/or life imprisonment. Do you understand the maximum penalties in the charge, sir?
Yes.
Count 5 charges you with a violation of Idaho Code 18-1401, burglary, a felony. It alleges that you committed that offense on or about the 18th day of June, 2023, in the county of Shoshone, state of Idaho, by entering into a house, room, and/or apartment with the intent to commit the crime of murder. That carries a potential penalty of not less than 1 year in prison and a maximum penalty of 10 years and a $50,000 fine. Do you understand that charge and potential maximum penalties?
Yes.
A preliminary hearing needs to be set in this matter. Ms. Cheesebro, have you had an opportunity to discuss the time frame for that preliminary hearing with your client?
We're going to ask it to still be set within the 14 days at this juncture.
At this point in time, the court will set the matter within the 14-day minimum time requirement. I will set that matter for July 3rd, 2023, with an 8:30 a.m. status conference. and a 1:30 p.m. preliminary hearing if the matter proceeds to preliminary hearing on that date. We will send out notice to that effect. The next issue we intend to address is the issue of bail or release. I will first hear from the state. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, first I'd like to start by pointing the court this morning to Idaho Code 19-2903. Under 19-2903, this court has the discretion to analyze the factors applicable in this case and determine if bond or bail is even appropriate in this instance. To that point, Judge, I would defer to the court's discretion, as the court ultimately has discretion under that statute and has the ability to make determinations necessary therewith. Under Idaho Criminal Rule 46C, Your Honor, factors are outlined for this court to consider in determining if bail is set, what an appropriate bond amount should be, and any associated conditions with that bail. Pursuant to Rule 46C, I'd like to highlight for the court some of the factors under that rule that I believe are most applicable to this court's determination here this morning. Starting first with ICR 46C1, the employment history and nature of employment of the defendant is of pertinent to the court's consideration. Based upon information received by our office in anticipation of this morning's proceeding, it appears as if the defendant, both through statements made, through information gathered, and through the application for a public defender submitted to this court, the defendant has lawful employment with a local business working as an underground miner, and as such has access to a stable income through that source. Next, under Rule 46C2, a court should consider the nature of a defendant's family relationships, and under Rule 46C5, any individuals who agree to assist the defendant in their obligations with court. I believe these two factors are somewhat related, Your Honor, as a defendant's family relations in a community are often the same relations that that individual relies upon in giving this court assurance that it will comply with court conditions and orders and attend future court proceedings. When we look at some of those natures and ties, Your Honor, the defendant, being a local resident of the community, does have family located here in the Silver Valley. With that said, when we look at the nature of some of those relationships, we look first at the relationship between the defendant and his father, wherein his father has a lengthy criminal history and is currently on felony probation himself. Next, we look at the arguably most likely relationship which would secure the defendant's appearance in court in compliance with conditions, and that is their spousal relationship. In this instance, while the defendant's spouse does not have a significant criminal history, there is a recent charge as of 2019 wherein the defendant's spouse was charged with aggravated assault. And that case was ultimately resolved by way of a misdemeanor assault plea and violations of driving offenses. I think it's important to highlight in the course of that charge, which was just referenced, that the affidavit and the nature of the allegations in that complaint gave an indication from the defendant's spouse that a firearm or other dangerous weapon was used in the commission of that offense, and statements were made threatening violence. Next, under Rule 46C4, court should give consideration to a defendant's character and reputation. Likewise, under Rule 46C9, a court should give some consideration to a defendant's ties within the community as those ties relate to a likelihood of flee upon release. As to the defendant's character and reputation and any ties which would mitigate any consideration for a likelihood of fleeing, I'll defer to defense counsel if they have any factors they believe are pertinent for the court to consider under that provision. Next, Judge, Rule 46C7 asks the court to analyze a defendant's criminal history. we look at the defendant's criminal history in this case, we see a sparse and sporadic criminal history, which contains a number of violations between the dates of 2007 and the present. Analyzing some of those and outlining them for the court, as the court should be aware of what those are, I'll go through them in summary fashion and outline each which was identified either through a criminal history background check or through the I-Courts portal. In 2007, there was a no insurance and a failed to obey traffic devices infraction for which a conviction was entered. Also in 2007, there was a no insurance infraction. And finally, in 2007, an additional citation for failure to pay traffic violation fines. 2010, there was a misdemeanor charge with the nature of a battery. Ultimately, that misdemeanor offense was dismissed with no reason given within the criminal history printout. Secondarily, in 2010, there was a drug possession case. That case appears to have been resolved with a misdemeanor conviction. However, associated with that case is a 2012 probation violation, which was charged as a result of subsequent criminal charges out of jurisdiction. In 2012, there was a no insurance misdemeanor offense, which indicates a plea of guilty. And additionally, in 2012, there was a driver's license suspension violation for no insurance. 2014, we see another driver's license violation. In that case, we also see a misdemeanor plea being entered. And lastly, the most recent criminal conviction, as indicated on the criminal history, was a 2020 traffic infraction. A summary having been given of the defendant's criminal history, I'll defer to the court as to the weight or significance it places on any of those prior convictions.
So to me, listening to prior convictions, it seems a lot of them were traffic infractions and drug offenses. So I feel like maybe he did just snap. Again, you know, we don't know everything at this point. However, to have an argument with someone and then decide to take the whole family's lives seems a bit irrational to me. To Kelly. And right. So, and it's interesting. So True Crime Dime, what I find interesting is when I did watch the first appearance for Chad Dorman from, was it Ohio, that killed his 3 little boys. And they also read his criminal history, which was 1 domestic violence charge. I don't remember them reading off Brian Koberger's criminal history, which makes me think that he didn't have one. I did make a note to look into that though, because I'm just drawing parallels between the two, comparing and contrasting, so that I can, find out more information. But I do find this interesting that his criminal history isn't that violent, so to speak.
Or subsequent probation violations. Last, Judge, Idaho Criminal Rule 46C under subsection 6 asked the court to take a look at the nature of the offense and the likelihood of conviction. Although the defendant was cooperative with law enforcement at the time of initial contact following their response to the scene of the incident, admissions were ultimately made to the offenses charged. In subsequent interviews by law enforcement with those in or around the scene, identified both a motive, a method, and a witness to at least 2 of the 4 charged murders. When we look at the significance of these allegations, Judge, we see under Idaho Code, each of them carries up to a life prison sentence and the possibility of death. 4 of those which could potentially carry that penalty and run consecutively, and a 5th charge of a felony nature as well. In the gamut of identifying the significance or seriousness of these offenses, Judge, Idaho Code does not contemplate a more significant offense. When we look at the actual facts of this case, Judge, we see a crime which was committed in a relatively horrific manner in regards to the nature of the allegations, the manner in which it was carried out, and the method that was utilized by the defendant in the course of his actions. Of importance to note, additionally, Judge, one of the 4 victims in this case was a child under the age of 18. All of those factors are pointed out to the court without going in great amount of detail to simply point the court to the nature of the offense and the likelihood of conviction, which should be considered by this court under the aforementioned rule. As such, Judge, and in summary to this court, should this court deem Idaho Code 19-2903 that bail is in fact appropriate in this case and chooses to extend bail, I would ask that it be set in no less than $1 million. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Ms. Cheesebro.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to substantially defer to the court in this matter and reserve argument regarding bond. Before I do that, however, I think it's important for the court to know we are not in receipt of the affidavit in this case. Certainly those factors are laid out by the state, but we're not in possession of that yet. Secondly, I would note that Mr. Kaylor has resided in Shoshone County his entire life. He is 31 years old. Lastly, I would just note that he does have minimal criminal history. Certainly the state's recitation seemed long, but in really breaking that down, we have a few misdemeanor offenses, certainly none of a violent nature. So with that, Your Honor, we are going to submit to the court. We are asking the court, however, to set a bond in this matter, and we'll reserve argument for a later time.
Thank you, Ms. Cheesebro. Whether or not to set a bond is in the court's discretion. Pursuant to Idaho Code 19816 and 192903, as well as Idaho Criminal Rule 46B, this particular defendant and the nature of the charges do not entitle the defendant to bond. Having heard the information here today, at this point in time, I am not going to set a bond in this case and will remand the defendant to custody with no bond, pending further information that the court will receive at future hearings to address a bond setting, with the defense having an opportunity to provide that additional information to the court. Is there anything else we need to address today, Mr. Allen?
Nothing further from the state. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Cheesebro.
Your Honor, I just want to give the court a heads up. There will be a vague motion that will be filed by defense in short order. We'll ask that be set for hearing, but anticipating that will be brought shortly.
We will work on getting a court date for you as soon as possible with respect to that motion.
Thank you.
At this point in time, that concludes the first appearance for Mr. Kaylor in CR 40-23-970. We will go off the record and be in recess.
And that wraps up the first appearance for the suspect in the Kellogg murders, where 4 people were killed. Majorjon Kaylor denied bond. He will stay in custody at the Shoshone County Jail. In that court appearance, we also learned more about the victims, those victims being named for the first time officially. Kenna L. Guardipee, Kenneth R. Guardipee, Devin R. Smith, and then someone identified as AS. Frequently, they use those initials when the person who is involved, in this case, the victim, is a minor. So we now know the 4 names of the people who were killed. We also know that Kaylor will face first-degree murder charges for each of those deaths. They've also tacked on a burglary charge, saying that he went into a home with vengeance and committed the act of burglary. In this case, it would have been in the Kellogg murders there on Brown Avenue on Father's Day evening, 7:30, June 18th. That's when this all transpired. Shortly after Kaylor was arrested, today he appeared in court for the first time, essentially just laying out what exactly he is facing. And then you saw the prosecution go down a list of crimes he's been involved in, essentially calling them sparse and sporadic from 2007 to the present, mostly listing misdemeanors when it comes to insurance issues, traffic violations, but also talking about his family setting, saying that his father has a history of felonies, saying that the person that he is connected to, a significant other, also in trouble with the law. Therefore, no bond set for Kaylor. But again, what we're trying to do now is look ahead to what is next, and that includes a July 3rd preliminary hearing. What does that mean? That means that the state must prove probable cause that Kaylor is responsible for these 4 murders. If that takes place, then the case will move to a district court, and that is where Kaylor will finally make his plea in an arraignment, guilty or not guilty. But first, there are some steps to get to or to take before we get to that spot. And that includes that first initial hearing, which will be July 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. John Webb is in the courtroom.
Okay, so we're going to go back to, give me one second. So now I just have a video that sums that up and gives a little bit more information on this case. So again, thank you so much for those of you who are here with me. I very much appreciate it.
Well, these are the faces of the 4 people shot and killed in their home in Kellogg. The Shoshone County prosecutor saying this man, Majorjon Kaylor, confessed to the crime. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aaron Luna.
I'm Kirsten O'Connor. If convicted, he could face life in prison or potentially the death penalty. We have team coverage tonight on the shooting that has left many in the area searching for answers. We begin with Natalie Grant, who was in court today, who has the latest on the investigation.
And Kirsten, the courtroom where Majorjon Kaylor made his first court appearance this morning was scattered with friends and family. It was quiet, except for an occasional sob. While we know a lot more today than we did yesterday in regards to this case, there are still a lot more questions to be answered.
When we look at the actual facts of this case, Judge, we see a crime which was committed in a relatively horrific manner.
The suspect in the quadruple homicide that took place in Kellogg, Majorjon Kaylor, sat before a judge for the first time on Tuesday. The names of the victims and how they died were revealed.
In the gamut of identifying the significance or seriousness of these offenses, Judge, Idaho Code does not contemplate a more significant offense.
According to an arrest affidavit, there was an ongoing argument between the Kaylor family and the victims after the Kaylors say they repeatedly saw Devin Smith, who's one of the victims, masturbating through a window. The documents say the Kaylors were concerned for their 3 young children. An argument between the families escalated, and police say Majorjon pulled out a gun and shot each member of the family in the head, killing all 4. And according to a prosecutor, when police arrived, he confessed to the murders and the motive on scene.
Admissions were ultimately made to the offenses charged. In subsequent interviews by law enforcement with those in or around the scene, identified both a motive, a method, and a witness to at least 2 of the 4 charged murders.
Kaylor is due back in court on July 3rd, and of course we'll bring you any new updates regarding this case as they become available. Reporting in Shoshone County tonight, Natalie Grant, 4 News Now.
Uh-oh, what did I just do? Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. Okay, so again, I have another article about the victims. And so this is Justice for Guardipee. Kellogg community remembers victims killed in quadruple homicide.
When I was accepted to SGU, that was one of the greatest days of my life.
Ad.
It's comforting to know that.
We now know the names of the 4 victims in the quadruple murder in Kellogg: Kenna and Kenneth Guardipee, Devin Smith, and 16-year-old Aiken Smith. Tonight, people who knew the victims are gathering to remember them. 4 News Now's Peter Choi was there.
It's just hard. She's my friend.
Flowers, balloons, and signs that read "Justice for Guardipee Family" are being laid by neighbors in front of the victim's family home.
I grew up with them my whole life, 40 years. So our moms, their moms, us kids just hanging out.
Casey Sharp says she knew the family for decades. She says she couldn't believe this happened to someone she was so close to.
Stomach turns a certain way when you find out your friends and family were murdered, you know? I'm here just to get some justice.
I was absolutely shocked. I almost didn't believe it.
Erin Bartley says she grew up with the suspect Majorjon Kaylor's family in Kellogg. She says she mourns for the victims and says it's a terrible tragedy for the Silver Valley community.
I just really hope that the truth all comes out, and that I just hope for peace for both families, you know, both the friends and families. I would pray for peace.
I want everybody, both parties, just to get together, not fight anymore, and not accuse, and to be divided. I think the town's going to be divided now because of what happened.
On Tuesday night, community is holding a candlelight vigil on Brown Avenue for the victim's family, to remember the family who's now gone and to come together again as a one community. In Kellogg, Peter Choi, 4 News Now.
And I just want to see, I believe this is, yeah, they're just stating the video again. So I just want to make sure there wasn't anything additional in that article. And so next I have one more video, and then we have an article describing the prosecutor not seeking the death penalty. And this again is in regards to, this might be the same video actually. If it is, we'll not watch it, but no, different video. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys, hang on a second. My bad. I forgot to hit share this tab. One day I will get these things right. Okay, let's try that again.
More tonight about the Kellogg, Idaho family killed Sunday night. This came after the suspect told police an 18-year-old in a neighboring apartment was accused of lewd, inappropriate behavior in front of a window in full view of young children outside.
The children's father, Majorjon Kaylor, now faces murder charges after investigators say he shot all 4 people who lived in that apartment below him. Krem 2 Shannon Mowdy traveled to Kellogg to speak with a family friend tonight.
The memorial behind me has grown overnight. Throughout the day, I've watched people stop their cars to take a look. Others have walked up to lay down flowers. The family friend who helped put this together says she wants people to remember the Guardipees as a good family. Beneath the backdrop of a busy Idaho interstate, a quiet memorial is steadily growing outside this duplex on the corner of Utah and West Brown Avenue.
People are going to drive by here. So like them just like having like the crime scene mind and just like looking at this just didn't sit well with us. So we're like, we got to go put something up.
Katie Ann James is a longtime family friend, now helping honor Kenna Guardipee and the 3 family members killed Sunday night.
It was just, it still doesn't even seem, I don't even think it's set in yet.
She says Kenna was a mother figure to everyone who always remembered to pack extra essentials on their joint family trips.
She had the biggest heart. Even when we went and did anything, if I forgot anything, Kenna always had a spare of everything.
She worked at a nursing home just across the street and knew the residents' meal preferences, down to how much chocolate to add to their milk.
The dress up days was her favorite thing. So they dress up, and for the residents and have fun.
James says Kenna's father, Kenneth, was helping raise her 2 teen boys, Devin and Aiken Smith. Aiken was about to turn 17 and looking forward to a military career after high school while serving in junior ROTC.
Super dedicated, volunteered anytime he could, go the earliest, stay the latest he could.
Investigators returned to the scene Wednesday, where prosecutors say Majorjon Kaylor shot the family. An affidavit shows Kaylor accused Devin Smith of lewd, inappropriate conduct in front of a window in full view of Kaylor's young children, less than a week before the shootings. The affidavit says police responded and investigated with no further details.
I don't even think they lived here a full 2 weeks for all this to be going down. So for them to not even give the law enough time to do anything, this stuff takes time and it's a process. So for them to not even let the law actually do what they need to do the correct and legal way, and then just to take it into their own hands and think that they can play God and kill people is it's disgusting.
I did call and leave a message with the Kellogg police chief to see what, if anything, was being done about those allegations against Devin Smith. We were unable to confirm whether any charges or an arrest was pending. In Kellogg, Shannon Mowdy, Creme 2 News.
Okay. And the last thing I have is so this is from June 22nd. So this would have been Thursday. Idaho will not seek death penalty against accused Kellogg shooter. If Kaylor is found guilty, Shoshone County prosecutors will not seek the death penalty against him. New court filings show. And I do have I thought I had it up. Let me get it quickly. Is this it? No, that's not even the right. Okay, maybe I don't have it. All right, I thought I did. But for some reason I have. Oh, I do have it. Okay, for some reason I had a document for Brian Koberger in my folder for this case, so I was confused. So this is dated 6/21/2023, and so it says the court finds defendant indigent pursuant to Idaho Code, the public defender's order to represent defendant in all matters pertaining in this action. Defendant may be required to reimburse the county for all or a portion of the costs of representation. And then it does say below, the state having filed the declaration not to seek the death penalty, the Office of the Public Defender for Shoshone County is appointed to represent him as a capital qualified counsel is no longer required. So that was that. And let me just see. Those are the charges. So 4 first-degree murder and 1 burglary. Probable cause. Let's see what this one is. Order denying bail. All right. I thought I had one about. But maybe I don't. Nope, that's the next hearing, which I wrote down. Oh, wow. So defendant's request for discovery already. Okay, we don't need to know that. All right, I guess I don't have it. That's very frustrating because I thought I did. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, so we'll just go back to this then because I know I saw it somewhere. I just don't know where. Okay. So the man accused of shooting and killing 4 of his neighbors in Kellogg will not face the death penalty if convicted, new court filings show. Majorjon Kaylor, 31, is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Shoshone County prosecutors filed the notice. Actually, let me click on this. What does this bring me to? Oh, look at that. See that? Oh my gosh. Perfect. So here we go. And actually, I'm going to download that while I'm... Oh, I don't want it to go there, though. Okay. So comes now the state of Idaho, by and through the prosecuting attorney of Shoshone, and herein provides notice pursuant to Idaho Code that in the event the defendant in the above captioned case is adjudicated guilty, whether by acceptance of a plea of guilty as charged to murder in the first degree, by verdict of guilty, or by decision of the trial court sitting without a jury, of count 1, count 2, count 3, or count 4 of the complaint filed in the above captioned case, the state of Idaho will not seek a sentence of death, but will reserve the right to seek any other sentence allowable under Idaho law other than death. So they are saying no death penalty sought in this case. The death penalty is the maximum punishment for first-degree murder under Idaho law. However, the court filing says prosecutors will instead reserve the right to seek any other allowable sentence, which includes life in prison without the possibility of parole. In an affidavit, police said Kaylor and his wife were upset because they allegedly witnessed Smith expose himself in front of his bedroom window while Kaylor's children were playing in the yard. On Sunday, the Kaylors began arguing with the Guardipee about the alleged exposure, and Majorjon Kaylor ended up shooting the family in their apartment, the affidavit says. It later goes on to say he told police he snapped. Shoshone County prosecuting attorney Benjamin Allen released a public announcement Thursday. After careful consideration and discussion with the victim's family, our office has made the choice to remove the death penalty as a sentencing option, which will set the path of criminal procedure in this case on course as a non-capital first-degree murder. This decision comes as a result of careful consideration of the realities of death penalty statistics within our state, as well as discussions with the family members of the victims involved in this tragic event. Kaylor is currently being held without bond, and a preliminary hearing has been scheduled for July 3rd at 1:30 p.m. Idaho time. So that is so far what has been released in this case. So again, thank you everyone for being here. All right, take Kelly, have a good one. You're probably already gone, but Lex Lux. This case is wild. I've been in a similar situation 8 years ago. Well, at the time was off military. I caught a man at my 3-year-old's window. Everything was recorded. I did have a gun. And I'm curious to know, oh, no cameras across the street, maybe one. Well, they did say there was a camera that recorded the altercation in audio. So, yep. Yes, July 3rd, next court appearance, which is pretty quick. And that's like a week and a few days. Yeah, a week from this coming Monday. So about 10 days. So with that, thank you so much again, everyone, for being here. I am going to call it, but I appreciate you all. And I will be doing a live tomorrow on 2 cases that I've wanted to talk about, and there just seems to be so much going on. One is the case of a man who shouldn't have been driving, who broadsided a sedan, killing all 5 girls inside. And the other is a mass shooting that took place at the amphitheater in, I believe it was Seattle. I don't remember the exact city, but I know it was Washington State. So that I will be doing probably. I like doing separate lives. I have done my case updates, and I just feel like for me, it's better just to do one case at a time. So that way you can just watch it about, what we're talking about. So with that, I am going to close this out, and actually give me one second. I did find an outro. So until next time, y'all, I will see you all on the flip side.